Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining this panel about time travel. We begin at the 1997 MTV Music Video Awards, and the video of the year goes to Jamiroquai for his hit song, Virtual Insanity. It claims that future will be made of, well, virtual insanity. Fast forward to 2020. We work online, socialize online, shop online. Online is the new normal. We have discovered that there is a method to the madness in virtual reality. Even the Oxford Dictionary chose Zoom bombing as the word of the year. Given the global health event now, more than ever, people could really do with an escape from reality. Ladies and gentlemen, I suggest 2020 is humanity's first virtual year. Fashion has always been at the vanguard of social change, and now is no exception. Within a short time, virtual fashion went from a wild card idea to a booming segment of the fashion tech industry. But what does it mean for your wardrobe? Every era has its visionaries and prophets. Our panelists today are the people who define what the future of fashion looks and feels like. From Los Angeles, I introduce Daria Shapovalova and Natalia Madyanova, our co-founders of DressX, the first digital multi-brand fashion retail platform. From Amsterdam, Amber J. Sluter, as the founder and creative director of the first digital fashion house, The Fabricant. From London, Jonathan Chippendale, the founder and CEO of Hallucian Agency, which helps brands engage virtual reality. He is on the digital advisory panel at the British Fashion Council. And also from London, Jennifer Drury and Dana Connell are founders of Brand Lab Fashion, which works on virtual showrooms and bespoke digital fashion experiences. Again, welcome everyone to Unlimited Art Virtual versus Real Clothes panel. With everybody's expertise, I think we can get a proper 360-degree look at our topic today. I will start with one question for each panelist before proceeding with an open discussion. We are familiar with ins and outs of traditional fashion industry. So first, I want to understand some differences between fashion as we know it and virtual fashion as it is developing now. So my first question is for Amber. How does designing digital garments differ from creating physical clothes?
Wow, yeah, that's a very new, beautiful frontier. Because basically, you're able to do anything you like. You're no longer limited to physicality. So anything you can create, you can do that by putting in any type of fabric that you like. And for me as a fashion designer, I come from a traditional background. So I know what it's like to make real clothes and design real clothes. And I always felt like it was very slow and quite limiting because you create this garment and then you see what it looks like. And then afterwards, you cannot change it anymore. It's stuck. While in digital, it remains an iteration. So you can constantly keep on changing things. You can change the prints, change the fabrics, change the drape, change the fit. Anything is at your disposal. So to me, as a fashion designer, it was a huge liberation to actually start working in digital. Yeah.
Fantastic. And we're going to come back to this key differences between the physical and the virtual world. So my next question is for Brand Lab. How is the showroom experience different for virtual customers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we're all astonished at the kind of sudden cultural shift towards digital, and it's been a long time coming for, I'm sure, a lot of us on the panel. I think what we do in Brand Lab is not necessarily to design the products in digital, but design the environments that the products can be purchased in and transacted. And we found it an incredibly enlightening year in terms of what we thought would perhaps take 3 to 5 years is happening now. And what we're finding is that when lockdown happened and the frustrations of lockdown were for everyone, but also a lot of benefits came out of lockdown, people being used to that next normal or whatever it is. So one thing we did recognize, though, is that people want to feel immersed with their peers. They miss human interaction still, even though we're digital. So what we set out to do was design immersive environments where people, can transact in amazing products like digital products, like some of the panel are experts in, but do that in an environment where they felt they were with their peers. And we've developed gamification around that. It's been incredibly positive because I think people are resilient, and the type of thing we do is to connect people in environments to make them feel they're with their peers.
Nice. And I'm curious whether, Jennifer, you want to add anything to what Dan already said?
No, I was just going to say, I think the most important thing for us over the past 9 months, 12 months is just how receptive people have been to, the change in everybody's mindset, really, and how people have become more accustomed to working in, online, whether that be working from home and connecting with their colleagues or peers or customers. And I think that's been the biggest kind of change for us. Is initially we were met with a little bit of resistance when we first brought our product into the industry. However, people now are a lot more aware of us and products like ours. And I think they're just a little bit more receptive to using it. And I think now that they've kind of had to, if you like, they don't want to go back to the previous way of transacting and meeting their customers. So it's been a really positive time for us, really. But it's been really encouraging to see people's growth in the industry when it comes to digital.
Fantastic. And that brings me to the next segment, which is for Jonathan to answer. How is the marketing and PR different in virtual fashion?
Well, I think in some ways it picks up a little bit on what Brand Lab was saying. I mean, one of the things, we've all spoken about how sluggish, or we all know how sluggish brands can be when it comes to embracing digital. And in fact, one of the messages of COVID has been the acceleration that's gone in, and the acceleration is great to see, but the acceleration is based on the fact that growth in digital for the last 10 to 12 years has been somewhat limited. I mean, when we started 12 years ago, one of the very first conversations I ever had was with a very, very, very well-known name in the fashion industry who is now head of a very, very large group of companies. And he remembered him telling me, Jonathan, this is all very interesting, but until somebody can prove to me that the internet will still be here in 3 years, my brand's not going to go off and do anything mad and crazy in digital. So the bar was all set quite low. Where we are now, I think, under the conditions of the pandemic are, and I'm thinking about virtual space, because we've done as a creative technology, we work across a very, very wide range of technologies, and we've been asked to do some virtual space type of work. I think it's been interesting how brands, traditional luxury and fashion and beauty brands, the kind of brands that Halishan works with typically, the expression of everything that brand holds dear is being demonstrated through the store, through the bricks and mortar, through the look of the window, through the smell, through the carpet, through the way that salespeople address you, to the look of the product and the way it's merchandised. Everything revolves around that store. So I think it was a little bit ironic, perhaps, but perhaps not entirely easily understandable that when brands didn't have those stores, or consumers couldn't access those stores, they naturally looked at, can we recreate that experience online? And can we put that into a digital space? And I think what we found is there's an opportunity there. Yes, exactly. But I think there's also an opportunity to understand why human beings, from an anthropological point of view, shop and go into physical spaces, and why people shop online. And I think if we're going to do something physical in a digital space, we almost need to bolt together the best of both worlds. And the physical space, exactly as Brand Lab is saying, is a social space. It's an opportunity to explore and discover. Product is not presented to you by algorithms or AI. You have to go and seek it out and find it. And there's a joy, a kind of childlike joy in discovery. But I think there's also, the scale of product that's available in a website. And if you can merge those together, and I think also celebrate the fact that it's digital, and overlay a sort of slightly fantastical element on top of it, so that actually it's not doing what the physical space can do, but almost, and no pun intended, augmenting that. I think there's some very interesting opportunities. And I'm very personally, as an analog luxury marketing director, that's my background, I'm very reassured that brands are still thinking about what they look like in the physical space, even if that physical space exists online now.
And of course, we have somebody on the panel, and I'm talking about Daria and Natalia from Dress X, that can tell us a little bit about the process differences for retail and distribution for virtual brands. Can you share some of your insights?
Natalia, go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So first of all, of course, digital fashion is more healthy for the planet from the distribution point of view as well. Of course, from the production, of course, from the consumption, but from the distribution point as well. So here we have an opportunity, first of all, to deliver the product fast and without any emissions, without any problems with a lost parcel or late delivery. Here we have an opportunity also to be more inclusive, because digital fashion is actually for everyone, and like literally for everyone. There is no limitation in terms of the like shape of the body, no limitations in terms of the age, etc. The only limitation, you need to have an internet and you need to be connected. And that is something that is like growing, and globally we are all more connected, and digital fashion is another language to speak, same as the fashion being a visual language. For us to communicate messages and ideas. Here we have an opportunity to communicate that as well in a digital space where we are actually connecting, like right now. And that's very amazing about digital fashion.
And I will just quickly add that it's such a revelation for all the customers to be able to wear anything they ever wanted to wear, but didn't have an opportunity or an occasion, because it can be a couture dress, it can be something very fantastic. And we start from the notion that all of us became the avatars of ourselves on social media, let it be Instagram or Facebook, LinkedIn, any of those, because we're kind of a little bit different than in the real life. And that's amazing. We just want to support this creativity of people, and we all become creatives on social media, and it will only continue growing as we started our discussion with the lockdowns and the new state of things. And some of the habits, they will stay, those habits that we kind of learned, and we just started to do everything during the lockdown. Some of those habits will remain with us for a long time.
I have a gut feeling that some of the most prophetic words are being spoken today on this panel. Amber, I'm curious. I can see how working with digital clothes can help unlock their imagination, but should all designers learn how to create digital clothes, and why?
I think it's a valuable part for the future. I mean, I think all of us, right now we're on a video call, and we are being filmed as a person. But I think in the future, it's going to be different. Like, we will have virtual representations of ourselves. And, this can be in the form of an avatar, or maybe even in the form of actually wearing digital clothes later on your body, whether you can see that with a lens or with glasses or anything like that. I think it is essential for the future of fashion, to actually understand these technologies and to see what it can mean. Because the thing is, as a designer right now, if you're still investing in physicality, I mean, it's going to disappear. And I really hope personally that it will be less physical clothes and more digital clothes. And with that digital product, we're actually able to express ourselves within any sort of minutes differently of how we feel, because right now we're stuck with one look, right? It's like if you cut off your hair, in reality, it's cut. You can't go back. And I think in the virtual space, you're able to explore your identity. You're able to create all of these different expressions of yourself and change that within a minute. So I think that for designers, it's essential to step into this world, because it is liberating the identity, and it's actually also creating a closer connection to emotion and how we feel as humans. And it can actually become more of a language that we want to speak to each other, more so than it is right now. So I would say to every single fashion designer that graduates right now, it's like, invest, because a lot of companies are investing in it. So a lot of big fashion brands are looking into it right now. A lot of names are using it. And, back in the day when I started, which was 2014, 13, when I started investing in this, nobody saw that it was going to happen, as in like, it was really crazy to think that you would design digital clothes. Like, why? Everybody, when I was doing that, everybody said like, why would you do that? And right now there's brands coming out with video games. So, the link is sort of, it's sort of set, because in this digital world, we have to express ourselves as humans. And how will we do that is the question. And I think every single fashion designer can bring a different flavor to what that is supposed to be. And I would love to see that.
Thank you, Amber. Fantastic points. I had a chance to read the latest report from McKinsey & Company that said that e-commerce adoption jumped a decade worth of value in the first 3 months of the pandemic. They called it the quickening. Unsurprisingly, the virus outbreak has been good for VR makers. IDC, a company that compiles data about the industry, said it expected sales of standalone VR headsets to grow about 30% in 2020. And some industry insiders told me that sales and use of VR apps had grown since lockdown began. So this is a question for Brand Lab's directors. Do you see a quickening in fashion, and how does it manifest itself?
Yeah, definitely. I think the reason perhaps all of us here on the panel are in business in digital fashion is because perhaps we recognise that there's an inevitability to progress to the stage where it's used more and more. And I just think what's happened with COVID and the pandemic is that it's just quickened that inevitability, really. But I think the key thing is, and especially something picked up on something that Amber said about the expression, how you can change things. I think that's really important, because if you think what we do in creating virtual environments and virtual stores and showrooms and things, there is no limitation to square feet or size or where you're going to have a showroom. You can have a showroom in outer space. You can promote your swimwear brand on a beach or golf brand on a golf course. And I think the key thing is, though, the renders, the digital science, everything is getting better and better and better. So I don't just think it's about e-commerce. I think it's about the whole fashion supply chain, from manufacturing and design all the way through to sales, and then e-commerce and after-sales service can be digitized. And I just think it's perhaps an unstoppable movement now that COVID has accelerated. What do you think, Jen?
Good.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, yeah, I do agree. And I think what we've seen, again, what we've seen over the last 12 months or 9 months specifically, has just been, how you talk about how it's quickened. And I think we saw ourselves in this position in maybe 5 years' time, where we had so many people on board, and we had so many similar organizations around us. But it's really encouraging to see that we have our place in the market, but there are so many aligned businesses that we can work with now going forward. And I think it is an end-to-end process now in digital, in fashion. And I think from a sustainability point of view, it's really important that we continue the same way that we have over the last few months. And it's it really is kind of growing as an industry now, and people are a lot more receptive to it. So I think it's a really exciting time for us in our business when we look at the opportunity of working with other people and kind of growing as a whole from an end-to-end perspective, from a customer perspective.
I love the shared optimism that's on display here today. And that brings me to a question for Daria. What happened to fashion tech? Has the industry skipped right over into virtuality?
I think for me, fashion tech, it's all about like how fashion is becoming more technological, but definitely like virtual aspect is becoming more and more important. But that's all the transformation of the fashion industry, right? Let's call it fashion tech or the new era of fashion. We all knew that fashion industry was not a disrupted industry, like it was kind of old and not disrupted for such a long time. So we waited for the event like that, for the event like pandemic to change the landscape. And obviously you was mentioning this report by Business of Fashion and McKinsey. And every year they were kind of delving into the topic of online and how it's changing fashion and tech in general. So I believe, like as I always said, and we've discussed that when we both lived in San Francisco, that technologies will definitely change fashion the way it will never be the same again. As we used to work in that industry, it will be completely different. So now I definitely agree with Amber that all designers should start with becoming digital fashion designers. It's way easier, it's way cheaper. Everyone who wants to do a showroom, they need to start with like a virtual showroom, virtual experience. As so many brands, and they start to produce products, why don't just produce images and post them online on Instagram? So I think like we should just perceive everything that is happening right now and with the fashion industry different, and try to find ourselves either in tech or in virtual or somewhere, but not in the old fashioned scheme.
And it's true, because there's this saying in the industry, in the fashion industry, that there's very little new that is today. And I think virtual reality is this new frontier that's giving a special energy to the fashion industry. But VR is a new space, and there are a lot of people that will have access to this fashion experience. You know, as a fashion editor who writes for Forbes and L'Officiel, I now finally be able to see looks and angles that are not familiar in real life, thanks to virtual reality. But let's really talk business. And it seems that there is an emerging triangular business model involving a fashion designer, a production company, and a digital showroom. Of course, this model varies case by case, but I'm curious, Jonathan, 2020 is being dubbed as VR's big moment, but why is it still so niche?
Well, first of all, I'd probably say that we don't do VR, but we do AR, and we've been doing AR as one of the very many technologies that we've been working with for a long, long time. Jonathan is a big fan of VR, but Halishan, as an agency, is not necessarily a big fan of VR, yet only because I think, and this is a personal view, I think some of the technology is held back by the hardware. So the notion of a virtual space I find beguiling and interesting and stimulating, and an amazing canvas to draw fantastic environments and create beautiful experiences. But I find it disingenuous to interact with that by putting on a heavy rubber sort of thing. So we do work. We do a lot of work in AR. I think. I mean, I was very interested in what Daria was saying about fashion tech and the question you asked there, because one of the problems that we've seen over the years is that actually the reality is that the fashion industry, up until COVID, up until 2020, has been a terrible industry for any entrepreneur to get into fashion tech. And the reason is that the fashion industry, by definition, is constantly reinventing itself. So the technology side of it has been what's hot, what's new, what can I use? So if we look at the catwalks, one year it's been about holography, another year it's been about wearables, one year it was about drones, then it was about AI, then it was about AR, then it was about VR. And it takes ages and ages to kind of fine tune and perfect the technology. But the next year, the technology is being thrown away because they want something new. And it's only now, I think, that some of these technologies are being seen as being scalable. And actually, the tipping point, we always said over the years, the tipping point is going to come when actually the projects are not being commissioned by the marketing directors who have marketing budgets, who are always looking for something new, but actually from the merchandising teams, because then you know that the merchandising teams are seeing a value in what you do, and the fact that the money to pay for your project or your technology is coming out of their margin. And if they can accept that margin, they know you're going to be selling more, and therefore it's a viable and sustainable project. And that's definitely happening this year. I mean, in the AR work that we're doing, augmented reality work that we've been doing, we're just seeing huge take up. And that's not just take up because of lockdown. It's the quickening you were talking about. It's the acceleration you were talking about. It's the fact that people are stuck at home and they're looking for some interesting changes in their lifestyle. They're looking at a bit of luxury. They're looking at trying to understand, who they are and what they are. And some of these technologies are now, very, very good. They've been around for a long, long time, and they've perfected. And I think there's something else here, which I think Amber was alluding to. I mean, when we think about digital fashion, I think, the whole thing is predicated on that tipping point that all of us, we have a kind of an offline persona and we have an online persona, and actually increasingly that online persona is becoming more valuable, much more valuable than our offline persona, and that online persona, it therefore is a commodity, and there are people that want access to that commodity. Digital fashion fits in very neatly there, particularly as Amber was saying, your online persona is a place where you can explore different sides of your personality. It can be fantastical, it can be allegorical, it can be completely different than you as an individual. It's a place of fantasy, and I think that's where we get to with this link between gaming and fashion. There are a lot of similarities between gaming and fashion. There are a lot of dissimilarities too. I mean, both are tribal, both inspire huge loyalty in terms of their followers. But then they're not easy bedfellows either. I mean, gaming can be quite a dystopian place where you explore slightly darker areas of your life. And by the way, gaming is also about taking control and making your own decisions and moving through the world in your own place and calling your own shots, and brands are all about control. So I think the brands that are doing better in this space are the ones that are letting go a bit, and the ones that are recognizing that actually they don't necessarily have to control all of the narrative. And that notion of control versus freedom, flexibility versus rigidity, I think is, that's where the battle is. And I think if brands can let go a bit, then actually a lot of this area is going to unlock. If brands try and retain control, then I think it's going to retain quite a kind of niche look.
Jonathan, you've given me a great segue into our next question. And I just want to say we only have a couple of minutes left, so I would appreciate, Amber, as you answer the next question, to be as succinct as possible. Is symbiosis of digital and physical clothes possible? When can we expect augmented fashion?
Oh, I've been hoping for this, and I've been saying it's coming. I think 2016 I said it's going to come within the next 10 years, and now I think it's going to come within the next 5 years, at least. And I think the technology needs to be ripe for it. The thing is, technology is not there yet. What we see in iPhones right now, the LiDAR technology, for instance, that is in our iPhones, those kind of things are the things that's going to drive the innovation. And it needs to come from the tech, because all of the ideas are already there. Our holographic garments are ready to go, right? It's just about the technology that needs to exist and it needs to develop. But this will happen. And I think the more we invest in it and the more that we want to go into it, the faster it's going to come. And I know that it's possible, and I know that technology is there. It's just being developed, and it needs to become faster, and all kinds of things are going to help. But I think it's going to be I hope it's going to be the next 5 years, if not earlier. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Amber. Daria, very quickly, 5 seconds. What is the next big step for virtual fashion that you see coming in 2021?
Of course, virtual fashion on videos in all sorts of programs.
Nice. What about yes. No, great. And what about Brand Labs, the team? Can you share, what do you see as the next big step for virtual fashion next year?
Oh God, it's limitless, isn't it? Gamification, hologram technology, most definitely, and even ways of touching and feeling fabric in a remote way via sensors on gloves and things like that. It's just so exciting, the possibilities.
Thank you, Dan. Jennifer, anything to add to that? Any of your own predictions?
No, I don't think so. I think Dan's more or less summed it up. But yeah, just again, kind of more developments in virtual reality and kind of more augmented experiences, and just kind of following it on the last few months. I think it is very much about being where everyone thought we were going to be in 5 to 10 years' time, maybe in 12 months' time. So the acceleration is really exciting.
I want to leave everybody with the following quotation from Charles Laundrie's book. Digital technology is a revolutionary force, and it needs a guiding picture of what we want from its power as citizens. And this needs an ethical anchor to guide us with our policies and investment, which really should be about solving the global and local problems that really matter. I would like to thank our panelists, our pioneers, for helping us understand how virtual fashion will influence the industry and our wardrobes. It makes me feel enthusiastic and optimistic about the future. And that alone is a great accomplishment for 2020. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.